Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage, where we take a look at games, chat about the gaming news in the industry, and of course, stream for fun. Today we're going over gaming news consolidated. This is June 8th through the 14th. This is going to be a little wonky because I'm just basically done with my night shifts here. But yeah, basically what I do for Gaming News Consolidated is I take a look at videos and articles and I put it all in one place for you once a week, generally on the weekend. This is being put out on Monday afternoon, Monday evening. I'm a little late again because of my work schedule, but yeah, we're going to be going over quite a bit of stuff. We got stuff on Mind's Eye, an update for Night Rain. We got stuff with Splitgate 2 and the CEO. We got some stuff on Black Ops 6 and Xbox's first $80 game. We're going to have a little bit of an update for GameStop as well. Man, we're going to talk about Nintendo and also Sony Interactive's entertainment business meeting. I'm going to talk a little bit about Space Marine 1 Remaster. Got to play that a little bit. And yeah, there's more stuff too. So if I've earned it, like sub, all that jazz. But yeah, this is going to be probably an hour long. It's going to be a fairly long one. But hey, let's go ahead and get into it. So let's start with Mind's Eye. So it's out now, and we aren't necessarily celebrating a bad game, but that the failure of the leadership of the studio itself, Build a Rocket Boy. So the game itself, the launch date was June 10th, was not ready. This is a cost of $60, and these are some of the issues. Frame rate is really bad. We're talking like sub 10 sometimes for some people. Even the PlayStation 5 Pro is definitely struggling to stay at a consistent 30 frames per second, which it's not able to really do that at all. This is even with the day one patch, by the way, which is crazy. Random items appear in the game. NPCs are disappearing on the sidewalks. Bullets are disappearing from the game. None of it really looks or runs well at all. Enemy NPCs also just stand there. They won't engage unless you do. Unless you basically engage them sometimes. There's no map for an open world game. There's mini-map only. There's also random mission failures. There's crashes for a lot of people, which they say it's roughly about 10 or 15%, and some people think it's a little higher than that. NPC cars will also spawn on top of each other and just explode randomly. There's no real layout for the NPCs in the game, or even in the objects. It seems like a lot of it is just kind of shoved together. The story overall is pretty boring, and so is the gameplay. Think of like a 2010 or 2015 game. Like this would totally fit. It's just not brought up to the standard that we normally have today. The campaign is said to be about 15 hours, though some people are beating it in less than 10. And that's including with it being buggy and everything. So that's crazy to me personally. SteamDB has it at a 41.5 last I saw, with roughly about 1,000 reviews. IGN is giving it a 3 out of 10. And then there was roughly 3,300 on Steam at launch, and it was just under 500 when I recorded this on the evening of the 12th, and I'm sure it's a heck of a lot less now. So they're still working on releasing more patches, fixing some stuff, but the game is an absolute mess. This is not ready whatsoever. This is horrible. Pre-launch, 2 executives of the studio left just before launch, the financial and legal. And then the co-CEO has also been blaming previewers for being paid off by competition to give bad reviews. And previewers can't, again, these previewers, they're not able to play or anything. But they're just basically watching. They're invited by Build a Rocket Boy to actually see this. So they're just sharing what they saw. And so, yeah, with some of the pushback from that, some of these streamers are like, hey, we're going to play the game and I'm going to show you the real game. This is on launch with day one, and it's a mess. We also have Glassdoor, which is reviews for employees to leave reviews of the company or of their bosses. And this is normally for past employees. But yeah, Glassdoor shows generally pretty bad reviews also for the studio. Also, 2 QA leads also left the studio. After the second, the position was just removed completely. So Yeah, which is ridiculous because you have to have QA, and clearly the game didn't have that at all. Again, it's a total mess. So I'm assuming they didn't really like the heads of Build a Rocket Boy didn't like what they were saying, so they just fired them or made their jobs difficult or unbearable or whatever until they left on their own volition. And then, after the second time, they just got rid of the position, which is ridiculous. You got to have QA. You got to have some feedback instead of just, toxic positivity. For Pete's sakes, we already should have learned that lesson already with several games, even just last year. Even, too, in February of 2024, the studio had a slide telling employees that they didn't have burnout, but that they'd lost focus on why they were there, on what they were doing. And again, that is just not that's not fixing anything. Man, morale's got to be at an all-time low. That'd be so frustrating. And again, that was over a year ago. So it's probably been crunch time for these devs for quite some time. Also, the marketing for the game, we've talked about this too. It was just really lacking and kind of weird. And yeah, we covered that last week. Also, there was manipulation of pre-orders on Xbox. That was actually pretty blatant. There was roughly 50 reviews, averaging 4.7 out of 5. Or that would equal to a 94 out of 100. And again, this is like pre-launch. So yeah, 94 out of 100, man, that's insane. That is utterly ridiculous. Last I saw, it was a 3 out of 5 with less than 200 reviews. And the thing that's crazy, if you actually work on doing the math, reviewing those 50 average high reviews for the game that were pre-orders, you'd be looking closer to 2 out of 5 or a 40 out of 100 without those skewed almost 5-star reviews. So yeah, it's just disgusting. Like, I really wish Xbox would really do something so that it's like, hey, you can still pre-order it. That's totally fine. But like, don't end up actually doing anything to allow people to post and to rate a game they haven't even played. I wish Xbox would actually fix that. And if that happens anywhere else on any other stores, they should fix that too. But yeah, that stuff should be banned. There shouldn't be any scores at all with pre-orders. PlayStation 5 physical also leaked in Germany. So people were actually able to play, and they were getting in trouble with Twitch and getting banned and stuff. And so, but since it was out there, Build a Rocket Boy actually released the day one patch early, again, to give it to him. And again, it was better, but barely. It wasn't even really worth it. So yeah, it was so bad. This will probably be the worst game of the year in 2025. And this was all supposed to be also multiplayer later this year. And like, the game isn't even close to even being functional. So like, what the heck are they going to be doing? Like, this game is dead on arrival, and like, people are already just exhausted from just games being broken and for marketing to be misleading. I mean, this was supposed to be like the GTA killer, end quote. And also from someone that worked on previous GTA games. And it's like, man, it's not even close. It's crazy. Also, there was supposed to be a whole nother thing called Everworld, which was like a creator or like a game engine for folks to be able to build stuff and for other people to play in it, basically. And yeah, I don't even think that's really going to materialize. They have a game that's completely broken, even to the point where PlayStation is refunding people, which rarely happens for a game ever. The last time they did this was their own game for Concord. But yeah, they're actually giving refunds for this game, which is pretty rare. So if you want more information, you can go to Cyberboy, that's B-O-Y. Also, Mr. MattyPlays, Lukas Stevens, and Some Ordinary Gamer. They've all actually been covering this. And Cyberboy is also says there's going to be interviews coming from people within the studio. So he's actually started that process, but he's handed it off to someone else because of possible legal issues. And he's just uncomfortable. He's just a smaller channel. He's not ready to hire that. And he really doesn't want to have to deal with lawyers or anything. So he's letting someone else take that over that actually knows what they're doing. So yeah, there is more information coming on this from interviews with people within the studio. So yeah, that will actually be pretty interesting. But yeah, just to the scale of the hubris of the CEO and co-CEO to think that this is amazing, that this is even ready to come out. And maybe it wasn't their decision. Maybe it was the publisher or the investors or whatever that have actually put a ton of money into this game. Maybe they're just ready to have some of their money back. But like again, if you release a game that's not ready to launch, there's nothing you can do. Like it's dead on arrival, and that's basically this game. Maybe they'll be able to turn it around. Again, that's been able to happen before in the past with a few studios, like Hello Games with No Man's Sky or Bethesda with Fallout 76. But boy, it really takes a lot of time. Even too with like Cyberpunk and CD Projekt Red. But even just to fix Cyberpunk was roughly about $128 million. I don't think they have that kind of money to fix this game. It probably won't exactly cost that much, but again, it'll take tens of millions to fix this, maybe even 100 million by the time they're done. Because yeah, this is so far from completion. It's a total joke. Yeah, it's insane. So let's move on. Let's see. We got a Night Rain update. I gotta say that people are actually playing on the weekend. I've had some success being able to play. There's still no duos yet, as far as I know, from being able to play several days ago. And I do get into some matches. It doesn't take too long, at least on the weekend. But again, those matches didn't particularly go very well. But like, it is working, which is nice. SteamDB shows that the score is actually going up. We're roughly about an 80 right now, and it might be kind of plateauing at this point on Monday morning. But the Xbox score is still relatively steady. So people seem to be enjoying it more on PC than what Xbox is showing. But yeah, at least there is improvement there with matchmaking. But still, there's things with a multiplayer game that I think should be here. Okay, voice chat, like not being able to communicate with folks is quite frustrating, especially trying to do some of the side quests or trying to give context for why you're doing certain things. It'd be nice to be able to communicate that in a party because, again, no one wants to hop into an actual party chat again, or like Discord or TeamSpeak. Most people don't. And so, yeah, you're just stuck with a silent party. And then, too, the thing with no cross-platform. So as people finish the game and beat the game, they're going to quit or move on, or people are maybe going to quit anyway because it's not the type of game that they want. And so people are just slowly going to disappear. And, I mean, already we're like 2 weeks into launch, maybe 3 weeks into launch. Yeah, we're like 2 weeks into launch, and this game has already kind of just completely disappeared off the internet, which is kind of nuts. So hopefully Lion and I can play some. We're just trying to figure out time to get together. Again, schedules just haven't been matching lately, but hey, that's what happens. But yeah, we do plan to play some more eventually. And let's see. Let's talk about the Future Games show. So just real quick. The best one of the whole thing was actually The Expanse. Osiris Reborn. This is going to be for Xbox and PC. We also got to see Echoes of the End, which is PlayStation 5, Xbox, and PC. Also Whispers in the Fog, which did look kind of like a small indie horror game. This is only on PC. Also Seven Deadly Sins Origins. That's PlayStation 5 and PC. Herdling is PlayStation 5, Xbox, and PC as well. This is summer of 2025. Sleep Awake, again, which actually looked fairly interesting as another kind of smaller indie game. This will be PlayStation 5, Xbox, and PC, and this is coming in 2026. Eric's Home, which is a kind of puzzle mystery. This is PlayStation 5, Xbox, and PC. This will actually be coming pretty quickly, July 25th. Titan Quest 2, never thought we'd actually get one. PlayStation 5, Xbox, and PC. This, again, will be coming summer of 2025. And they wanted to be clear in saying that there will not be any microtransactions in the game. They don't believe in those, but there will be DLC. There is also a plan to actually bring Titan Quest 2 to console at a later date. So probably sometime in maybe 26 or 27, something like that. There's also Eve Frontier, which this was interesting. This was like a mod server community kind of ordeal for the MMO, and they're actually looking for people to actually get started in modding and building with engines and stuff to actually help build. So they've already built quite a bit of Frontier already. but they're asking for more help. And so that can be kind of a cool idea. But again, we have some of these other games too that are, or we've had examples, I should say, where some of the developers, some of these studios are like, hey, we can use your help. And it's like they really kind of want the players to build the game for them. So I don't know. I'll kind of keep my ear out for this one to see how it is. But right now they're looking for people to help build, put in some of their creativity, get some experience, and they're willing to help support these modders for this community. So next was Formula Legends. This will be Switch, PlayStation 5, Xbox, and PC. And think of kind of like an arcade F1 racing. This actually looked kind of fun. Next was Deathground, kind of like a Dino Crisis style, with multiple characters and multiple environments to ultimately figuring out a mystery of what exactly happened here. And this, unfortunately, is only going to be PC, which is so frustrating. But it does look kind of fun, actually. If I have time or the funds, I might actually try that out. Next is Death on the Nile by Perot, another mystery game. It actually looked pretty good. It's actually based off of the movie / book, whatever. But yeah, my wife and I, we saw the movie. That was actually pretty good. This will be on PlayStation 5, Xbox, and PC. This will be coming in September. And again, this is a murder mystery. So the ones that actually looked the best, that are most exciting for me, right up there is The Expanse. That's got to be number one. And if you don't know really anything about The Expanse, it's already had some games and some TV shows out there. They are available. They are around. But yeah, very interested in the Expanse, actually. I just love sci-fi, and that one looks great. I hope we're not going to be disappointed, for Pete's sakes. That would be horrible. So, yeah, it would be pretty frustrating. Also, too, the EVE on Frontier. I'm kind of curious exactly what they're going to do with that. I don't know if this seems like a different side of the MMO, but yeah, I'm not entirely sure. That wasn't entirely clear during the presentation. Also, the Formula Legends, the F1 racing, that looks just like a fun, kind of more casual game. Deathground, of course, which is kind of like Dino Crisis, and then Death on the Nile, where you're trying to gather evidence. Kind of reminded me of like LA Noire, which is a pretty old game. I don't expect too many people to actually have played that, but that's kind of what it reminded me of. So that was the Future Game Show. Again, the hosts were great. They did a great job. But yeah, The Expanse. Man, I should probably throw up the trailer here. I'll see if I can actually remember that with how tired I am. But yeah, that looked pretty good. If you're interested in the other showcases, I did independent videos for those for State to Play, Summer Game Fest, and Xbox Showcase. You can check those out in the description below, again, if I remember. Yeah, this one's going to be a little just out there. I am so exhausted from work this week, but hey, aren't we all? We're all tired. So yeah, we'll get to bed soon enough, won't we? Yeah, make sure to take rest for yourself whenever you can. Okay, let's move on. Let's see. We got Phasmophobia is actually getting a movie from Blumhouse. Now, they usually like horror, so this fits right into their pocket. This is going to work out pretty well. We don't know too much, but Blumhouse does a pretty good job with most of their stuff. I do notice that a lot of these game movies are done by smaller movie studios. We also know that games are usually doing better than some of the movies. Like we just had, don't tell me, Until Dawn, and that was utterly horrible by some of the reviews out there. Again, it might make enough money, but yeah, it's overly not doing super good. But some of these are actually pretty good for the most part, like Five Nights at Freddy's. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with that, buddy. I'll keep my eye to the grindstone and let you guys know. But yeah, a lot of these adaptations are getting pretty big because yeah, the gaming industry revenue for last year in 2024 was $455 billion, so a ton of money, and almost $200 billion of that was just games and microtransactions, which is pretty nuts. But games industry is like everything, right? Consoles and accessories and all that kind of stuff, services, etc. The movie industry revenue last year was $308 billion. So again, it's quite a bit smaller than what gaming revenue is, and it used to be the other way. Movies used to be bigger, but now that's reversed, and these studios, these IPs, these publishers, they're seeing the opportunity to make some more money. And overall, the movie industry and show industry, I'd say, isn't really doing that well in 2020s. Some are doing pretty well, but there's a lot of others that are looking for some revenue. So yeah, it would make sense that we see these uptake and adaptations, and I think we will continue to see that through the rest of the decade until it's completely tapped out. Some of these have made huge amounts of money, and yeah, it's just expected to grow. Still, even in 2030, the gaming industry revenue is expected to be over $700 billion, and then by 2035, we're looking at $1 trillion, which is pretty nuts. But yeah, Five Nights at Freddy's made almost $300 million on a $20 million budget. So, like, they made a ton of freaking money, something ridiculous. Minecraft basically made $1 billion in revenue as well, the movie. And then Super Mario Bros., I think, is still the one that has the top, but they've made $1.3 billion. Just, yeah, Super Bros. Movie. We even bought a copy for that for the kids, and they love it. And we enjoyed it, too, for the most part. So, yeah, we're just going to continue to see these adaptations. And I'm for it as long as they're good. But yeah, the ones that I can see, I will certainly let you know. Okay, Black Ops 6. They have, quote, fixed this. It was a mistake. But, like, they started putting ads in your loadout screen. Like, how ridiculous is that? And so, yeah, we're at a point now where it's like, you know, when you changed your weapon in your loadout, they'd put a little ad at the top right of the screen, or, you know, that was related to your gun or a bundle or something. And just, yeah, no, we've already paid for the game. There's already a battle pass. There's already other DLCs. There's like early access to all of this stuff. It's like, don't be doing that, please. It's disgusting. It really doesn't necessarily matter to me, I guess, too much. But like the last microtransaction I bought, I think was on Wildlands. It's pretty crazy. It was a Sam Fisher outfit. But yeah, Activision admitted that, you know, that they put that in there and said that, quote, it was a mistake. But, you know, how do you honestly mistakenly code an ad to be in the loading screen with the latest update? That's ridiculous. We already have the message of the day, the store, loading into a match. Sometimes you'll see ads for that stuff. So far, they've removed that. I confirmed that. Yeah, that is actually gone. But I'm sure we'll see more ads later. Because, yeah, they're always going to try to push this stuff. Okay, this is the type of company they are now at this point. Which is really sad, because I really used to love Call of Duty. Like, that was just a fun time with my buddies. A great way to meet people. But I can't wait to see the BS that they pull in Black Ops 7. Like, that is going to be so disgusting. And I can't wait to cover it. It's going to be great content. Because... yeah. Oh, my word. It's going to be so frustrating. But oh well. This is how live service is now, unfortunately. Let's talk about Xbox. And we found out their first $80 game. Now, for those of you that may not necessarily remember, they said fairly recently that, you know, this holiday we were going to have $80 games. Well, now we know that it's Outer Worlds 2. And while they did get a bigger budget, while they did have more time on it, and the studio, too, is also bigger. There are more people working on it. I'm not sure if Outer Worlds 2 screams $80. Now, like Skyrim, or like the next Elder Scrolls 6, or even Starfield, whether you like it or not, yes, I can see that level being $80. Like, that would be an easier pass. Not that I'm going to pay $80 on any game in the future, except for maybe Elden Ring 2 or something like that. But, like, Outer Worlds 2, I don't know. I got to see more before I even come close to even $70. And even 60 might still be kind of high. So, well, yeah, we'll really have to see. But this kind of sucks because it's like, we're just going to be seeing more $80 games now from Nintendo and from Xbox. And I'm sure, too, at some point, whether this year or next year, also from PlayStation. Like, what is Ghost of Yotei going to be? That's in October. That's like, what, 5 months away? They haven't said what the price is. We do have a date. October 2nd, I believe, is release date. But yeah, what's the cost going to be? So yeah, $80 games, man, I am not here for it. I'm just going to sit and wait for sales. Like a lot of other people, which is nuts. And then something else, too, that was crazy is Grounded 2 is going to be $30. but that's going to be early access again. So it's like, okay, the first one was early access. That's great. The second one is going to be early access. I hope they still have the phobia mode because, yeah, if there's spiders in there, I'm going to freak. And, but yeah, how long is the early access going to be? And this isn't like, getting it 3 days early, quote unquote. This is helping beta test the game for the studio for $30. And then what's the real price going to be? 50, 60, 70? We don't know. So I don't know. If there's beta tests for Grounded when it shows up on Game Pass, I'll try it out to see what it's like. I'll see too, maybe if I can try it with Lion. But yeah, it's probably going to be a while that it'll be in early access. Probably at least for a year, I would think. Maybe a couple of years. Even some games are early access for like 3 years before they actually release. Which is kind of insane. Unless you're a Star Citizen, then yeah, you're just in beta forever. Well, they're still in alpha, technically, which is disgusting. Now, the showcase that Xbox had was actually pretty good. Okay, overall. Even the stuff, too, for Grounded 2, it was definitely improved, right? But thinking of all of the games that we didn't see, I'm thinking all of those are going to be $80, which just kind of makes me sick. So just about all of their first party. So this would be Black Ops 7, the next Forza game, Fable, Gears of War E-Day, Perfect Dark, Clockwork maybe. Maybe that's going to be 70 instead, which is still ridiculous. But again, this is just the world that we live in. But again, Outer Worlds 2, I would see that as a $60 game. Now, yeah, we'll have to see exactly what the gameplay's like. Since it's going to be on Game Pass, I'll try to show it to you guys and schedule it in. Let me know if you'd actually be interested in that, because I certainly will. Because this is also going over to PlayStation 2 at some point, we assume. But yeah, $80 for Outer Worlds 2 just doesn't really seem right. I mean, it's really got to be amazing, right? It's really got to be something. So we'll see. We'll see. Until his other games come out, I'm sure Black Ops 6 is going to be $80. God, that's going to hurt. PlayStation folks. That's going to be pretty disgusting. Also, Forza and Fable. I think, yeah, a lot of these other games that I mentioned before, I think they'll be $80. Here we go. How long before 90? Leave it down in the comments. I think 2028. When the next gen comes out, I think we'll hit $90. I'm serious. It'll be disgusting. Okay, let's talk about Splitgate 2. Well, the CEO came out with a hat on, right? We'll talk about that in a minute. But he royally messed up because when he was out there on stage during Summer Game Fest, he actually made fun of Call of Duty for the microtransactions. Well, it turns out he has an $80 bundle in his game. He has 3 currencies, a battle pass, and $34 skins for your portal. $34 to change the color on your freaking portal in the game. Now, if you don't know what the game is, it's kind of like a team battle royale or kind of like a COD type of arena shooter where you get to use portals and you can shoot through the portals, right? So you can't really hide anywhere. Okay, it is free to play, but holy smokes. So you're making fun of Call of Duty for their microtransactions and then you have $34 skins for your portal color? Come on. That is so out of touch. And then he was pretty tone deaf, regardless of whether you like our president or not. He said, make FPS great again. Now, I agree with that statement. I would love for first-person shooters to be wonderful and enjoyable and fun again. That would be great. I'd love that. But you know, that really doesn't sit well with a lot of people because, you know, regardless, both sides of the political spectrum and also the third side of the edge of the coin of people that don't care about politics at all, we all play video games, right? And yeah, we're all playing first-person shooters. There's a good mixture there, but yeah, having the hat up there again just seemed kind of tone deaf. And the last thing that most people want, which it has been that way since like the 2000s, is that we don't want any form of construed politics in our game. Even if it's a joke, even if it's meant to be funny, whatever, okay? If it's a rally, if it's some kind of a speech or something, or a senator or the president, okay, yeah, that makes total sense, right? Okay, we or a campaign for something, that would make sense. But when it's a completely separate industry, like again, we even covered this earlier in our last State of Gaming, actually. It's like, leave politics out of it, please. We just want to play our games and have a good time with it. So yeah, he meant for it to be funny, but again, just those two things put on top of each other just seemed kind of ridiculous. He has officially apologized, but ultimately what he did didn't help at all. Whether it's the hat, whether it's make games great again, or FPS great again, end quote, or making fun of microtransactions in Call of Duty when he has them himself. So, yeah, I don't know if this is overly going to go very well. But yeah, so far SteamDB shows the game at a 61 with 13,000 reviews. And they had 25,000 players at launch for peak. And then last peak was during a weekday a few days later with 15,000. Xbox shows it as a 3 out of 5. So yeah, it's not looking great already. And then, of course, what he said during the presentation didn't help at all either. So again, if it's not a banger, if there's not something brand new that's pulling people in, people are not going to be really that excited about it. And a 61 on Steam or 3 out of 5 on the Xbox Store with a 25,000 peak, and you already lost like almost half of your player base in a week. That's not a great start. All right, let's talk about GameStop. CEO came out and said that trading cards like Pokemon is actually going to be their main focus now. So how interesting is that? And this is just another example of GameStop dying of what we've known it as. And also, too, I would say physical games as well. Because, again, this is something we've been talking about for a few years. This is actually one of the reasons why I quit when I did, was that, we were pushing back then DLC like 10 years ago. I mean, this has been a long time. But it's like, good grief, if we're going digital, how are they going to sell physical games? That's a problem, right? Same with anything else, movies and music and whatever. That's really going to hurt retail. And so now, yeah, they're focusing on trading card games. Now, those are still pretty popular, okay? Whether it's Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, whatever. There's a whole bunch out there. And people still actually line up to get Pokemon packs when there's a new pack that's released by Nintendo. So there's still demand for some of this stuff. And people still wait outside for the doors to open so that they can get the next pack. Some probably to keep it, some probably to make money. But too, GameStop has also tried so many things. Okay, they've already merged with ThinkGeek. They've tried more merch. They've tried less physical games. They've tried selling you different types of stuff, warranties. I mean, this transition will ultimately be gradual for physical trading cards. But like, they ultimately need physical product to actually sell in their store. Even just going into the one that's in my town. Their little teeny slice of Xbox is super small now. They have a little kind of teeny slice for Switch 2, and then they have a small slice for PlayStation. And that is just one side of the store. One of the long walls. The rest of the walls are merch. Like statues and clothes and stuffies and trading cards and whatever. Like it just doesn't look good. Like we literally have a game store where most of the store is not games. Like they have to do something right. So I understand that, but again, and I even see this too in like some of the small private independent game stores or pre-owned game stores, is again, they don't really have a lot in there. And again, most of their games, or a lot, I should say a lot of their storefront actually is not video games. Which, again, is kind of surprising, and it's getting harder to find the older ones, because, of course, they don't make them anymore. It's also harder to find consoles that work, and accessories, all of this stuff. And that's something that I'm seeing now in three now, outside of GameStop, that have now added trading cards to to their storefront because, yeah, they got to sell something that people want. So it's very interesting actually seeing this trend. And, maybe in another decade, we won't even really have video game stores, which is kind of wild to think about. But yeah, it's just changing trend of the times. It's kind of crazy. Next, let's talk about, the PlayStation Showcase. I said in that video that they were having a fight stick that was wireless, and I didn't cover what the price could possibly be, so I took time to look it up. Turns out there's already some out there, current ones, that are wired for $180, released in 2023. This one is brand new, going to be wireless, so we're probably looking somewhere between $200 and $250. I hope. PlayStation hasn't given us a price yet, but man, who is going to pay $250 for a wireless combat stick or fighting stick for a few games? Man, some people really got some rich blood money out there. I don't. But yeah, that's going to be kind of insane. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Next, let's talk about Nintendo. Yeah, this is bad news. We have our first Joy-Con 2 stick drift. Yeah, I had a video too talking about this, trying to get that out there. That's like, look, the way they designed the stick, it is designed to have stick drift because there's two types of it. So I'll try to remember to link that video down below so you can have a look. But yeah, stick drift showing up a week after launch already. There's a few users out there, but this is really starting to gain traction out there in the social platforms, which I'm not a part of. I just have YouTube. But yeah, one apparently is reported that Nintendo is seeing it under warranty, which is nice, and they're replacing it for them. Because again, yeah, we are a week into launch, and you're telling me your $95 Joy-Cons are getting stick drift already. That is ridiculous. So yeah, hopefully this is not too common of a problem, but again, we already had the default of opting out of class action lawsuits. As soon as you accept the EULA, don't forget you have 30 days to write Nintendo back and say, hey, I want to opt out of opting out of class action lawsuits, which is not going to be most people, so class actions probably aren't going to happen. But I'm glad at least Nintendo is seeing it under warranty and they're actually replacing it. So yeah, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Buy a second pair as a spare. Because right now you can't actually buy, as far as I've been able to see so far, you can't buy the replacement joysticks. And it's not necessarily easy to completely tear those apart either. They're, I guess, a little bit more complicated according to some fix-it people. But I haven't torn one apart myself, of course. I won't be. I'm not spending that money. But yeah, this too is just really disappointing. And again, it's like they already had a class action lawsuit with the Switch 1 for stick drift, and now it's potentially possible they could be having another one. So, what are you gonna do? It just sucks. So yeah, wait to see. Take some time out there. But again, don't forget about that EULA. You have 30 days from accepting the user agreement on your Switch 2 to actually write them and be a part of class action lawsuits again. Actually hold them accountable. But yeah, again, those warranties or them holding to warranties for stick drift, that's only going to last for so long. And yeah, basically by 2026, you're probably not going to have that opportunity anymore. So yeah, it's just disgusting. It's just disgusting. And I think too, like, what about the ROG Ally? Now those, I have seen you can actually buy those joysticks and replace them. But again, those take a little bit of work because there's multiple motherboards. There's like ribbon cords. It's kind of a mess. But again, that is going to be something that I want to put out there. Is that, yeah, the Xbox Ally X or the XAX, I'll call it that, is probably going to eventually have stick drift too. So that I haven't looked into as much because again, it's not even out yet. There are still other ROGs out there. But you can at least buy the replacement parts yourself. That is nice. Now, as for the Switch 2 Joy-Cons, I don't know. I haven't been able to find any. So hopefully, again, Nintendo, they're not the best at this, but hopefully they actually work on making those parts available. Also, too, the Switch 2 has sold 3.5 million units in the first 4 days, off to a really good record-breaking start. Congratulations for them. And yeah, it is selling very, very well. So far, this is roughly 2.5% of all Switch 1s that sold over the life cycle. So yeah, they're off to a great start. But personally, I still don't think it's going to sell as well. I've actually reduced how many Switch 2s I think are actually going to sell. I think we're going to be closer to 75 million for the total life cycle. Because yeah, the stick drift on the Joy-Cons is just the beginning for some people. And then we have $80 games on top of that for some. There's also the EULA stuff. There's also all of the nickel and diming for accessories. The sheer cost of everything. I don't know. And two, the launch is really weak for first party. So I don't even. Yeah, I think they'll sell around 75 million, and I think the woohoo will kind of wear off in the next few months. And I think people will ultimately kind of see what's going on. But even the reviews that are coming out this week for the Switch 2, they're really not that great. So like people are saying you can wait. There's really no push to go grab one. It's not life-changing. It basically just runs your Switch 1 games better. Yay. Which we would ultimately expect. But if that's one of the biggest selling points, and if some people are kind of meh about Mario Kart, it's more Mario Kart, that's not great either. So, and then the only other release date that we really have, roughly, is Pokemon Legends later this year for the fall. And then, of course, we actually have a release date for Donkey Kong Bonanza. And there's still Metroid Prime out there. There's still also another Pokemon game, Champions, I think it's called. And there's some other games as well, Hyrule Warriors. But again, we don't really have release dates for those. So, I don't know. I just think the launch is like really, really weak. There's a lot of third-party stuff. There's like 25 games that you can grab. But yeah, I've been watching some of the reviews, like Lioness, and I don't think Spawn Wave has done one yet. But it's just kind of shocking. Like, this kind of feels like a Wii U moment. A little bit. Probably not as bad. Hopefully not. But yeah, this really doesn't look that great. So keep your ear out there, folks, if you haven't bought one yet. If you're still on the fence, I would just keep waiting, keep seeing what's happening. Let's talk about Sony Interactive Entertainment. Well, they had an annual meeting, and Holst was part of the interview and said that there's actually, it's implied that there's actually no delay for Marathon. There's no delay. They're confident in their engagement. And during the meeting, there were no questions really allowed for the first time. Everything was very kind of telegraphed and everything. And Sony is affirming that if they would delay, they would really feel like it would be needed. So I'm kind of getting the sense that they don't feel that delaying Marathon is really needed. But if they did delay it, it would only be a max of 6 months. So this would still put it in the current fiscal year, which would maybe push it out to a max of like February or March of next year, which again is not long enough. There's no way that's long enough to actually fix all the issues that they have and the frustrations that people have, especially too when there's competition like Arc Raiders that's coming this year in roughly 6 months. So, man, like that's kind of insane. Like not actually feeling like they need to delay Marathon. That's kind of nuts. There was more stuff too that I also want to talk about with the meeting. Overall, the whole presentation was very stiff, very controlled with the questions. The teleprompter, like them turning away from each other to look at the teleprompter, was pretty hilarious. So yeah, it was very staged. Didn't feel genuine at all, just very stiff. But it did have some interesting information that I want to cover. So we learned that they're still focused on single-player, multiplayer, and live service games. But there's going to be more of a focus on single-player, which is nice that it's at least on the table, because all their live service has basically failed. Also, indirectly, they've confirming the PlayStation 6 and the future handheld. And they have said, too, that console is going to be their primary focus. They've seen what Xbox has done with cloud gaming and Play Everywhere and all of that stuff, and they're not really that interested. So They're wanting to stick to the traditional model that they have been doing. They're going to focus on the PlayStation 6. They have basically confirmed with some of their questions indirectly that yes, they are also working on a future handheld. So yeah, we can look toward that in the future. I assume too we're also going to get a handheld actually before the next PlayStation 6. Kind of like following same suit with what Xbox is doing right now. But yeah, this is very interesting. They are also going to continue to invest in the cloud, but they're not going to go balls to the wall like what Xbox is doing. So again, they're going to allow it as a way to engage other players if they wish. They're even seeing like a 30% increase in playtime for those that are using the portal. So yeah, they're still going to continue to use that, but again, the primary focus will still be the PlayStation. PlayStation Plus also expect the price to go up some more. And they basically said whenever they feel like they're adding value to the service, they're going to raise the price. That's nice. I don't think they quite understand the concept of value, unfortunately, because it's all about value proposition. You know, getting stuff for the same cost or getting the same amount at a less or cheaper price. But that's not what they're doing here. They're adding stuff to the platform or service. And some of this stuff, I can't remember off the top of my head. I should have written it down. But the thing that's crazy is like some of the things they mentioned, I wouldn't even think as a benefit to us. I would just see that as just the generic improvements to a service. Okay, like a given. Not actually raising the price because they like actually improved something like the user experience or whatever. It's like, man, are you guys crazy? That's kind of nuts. And then, too, we take a look at Game Pass. Man, the value in that is insane. They're basically putting out $1,000 a year for $240. Now, I'm sure Game Pass next year will also go up, or maybe even this holiday. I would expect Stack now if you're interested, or if you're thinking of buying in, buy some now to lock in that price. But even cheaper cards than $20 a month are getting really hard to find in the retail stores. So one store is already completely out. They've completely shifted over. But yeah, I would actually start poking around now. It's even hard to find on like G2A and CD keys and Aniba. They're all kind of running out too. So I would really get on the ball and get looking on that, or even just stacking if you'd like. But even like I keep up with Mystic a little bit with some of my information on the PlayStation side. He does a great job of covering all of their content. But he's even saying that PlayStation Plus is adding less and less games and quality games to the service while they've been raising the price this decade. And he just doesn't see it as even a good value, even though it's quite a bit cheaper than Game Pass Ultimate. So PlayStation 2 is also planning on just releasing one tentpole game per year. So one game per year. And that is that's their pace. Now, this doesn't mean they're not going to have partnerships with third parties, okay? We're still going to get more games, right? Like Lost Souls aside, okay? We're still going to get some other games, of course. But like, if you're expecting Ghosts of Yote for several a year, that's not going to happen. So we're basically going to have my assumption is that we're going to have Ghosts of Yote this year in October. We're going to have Wolverine in 2026, and then we're going to have Intergalactic in 27. And that's pretty much it. 28, we don't know. Marathon at some point might drop during that time. Fair Games might drop at some point during that time. And also Project Gummy Bears might drop at some point during that time. But like with every game that was canceled, those studios have to start their cycle over, And sometimes too with less people. Like Bend Studios had 40 people get laid off last week now, since it's Monday. And less people means, less hands on deck. Man, I don't know. Bend Studio, Bungie, Haven, they're all kind of on the chopping block right now. And I wouldn't think it would really be great either, even for like Team LFG that broke off from Bungie because it's like they're working on Project Gummy Bears, and I'm not interested in their kind of a game that they're making, like, especially too when it's live service again. So it's like we might have a total of 16 games here, failed live service games from PlayStation, which would absolutely be an epic nuclear bomb going off. It'd be totally crazy to see that. And even like the destruction of Bungie is we're just slowly seeing it be chipped away to nothing. But yeah, it's really just kind of crazy. So PlayStation is still going to be enjoying third-party games. Okay, those are still going to be coming from the service, right? People too are going to be enjoying some stuff from PlayStation, but not a ton in the years to come. But PlayStation has 19 studios. Still, they have 19 studios, and you're telling me that they can't roll out some single-player games like 2 a year? Man, the level of turmoil that's got to be there is just got to be insane. And I think it really shows too that like Jim Ryan really messed stuff up. But like Jim Ryan, Herman Holst, and Drunken Miller, or whatever his name is, God, those three guys have just royally screwed the content train at Sony. It's unbelievable. And the fact that two of those guys are still there is amazing. Yeah, we'll see if the leadership changes really take effect and if they change stuff. But boy, if I was, yeah, it's kind of nuts. And then too, it's at least going to take 3 years, even just for like Team Asobi to put out like an Astrobot 2 or something, right? It'd take at least another 3.5, 4 years to put something out from now or from 2024. So, okay, we're looking at like 2028, next gen console. Pretty much everything that has started now is going to be next gen. That's kind of disgusting. So it's like, okay, so we basically have 3 titles we can look forward to, first party, from Sony, that are more fun, engaging single-player experiences. And we already know what they are. That's a horrible feeling. PlayStation has an identity problem. Because right now, the only identity they have is like they don't have first-party games. They just keep remastering stuff. They keep having failed live service. They keep making the wrong decision every time. So, yeah, hopefully they can turn stuff around. Otherwise, they're going to continue to lose billions of dollars. And I don't think they can really afford that. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I'll definitely keep up with that. They did say, too, one of the last things that I thought was pretty big is that they actually plan on keep doing what they're doing as they have been. Hopefully not too much to a T, because, yeah, they haven't really been doing much of anything but blowing up in the background. But, yeah, they are going to have, the focus on the console. We're probably going to have some other form of a portal, maybe a whole new type of handheld from the ground up. We'll have to see. 1 to 2 first-party games per year. Raising prices on PlayStation Plus every time they improve it in some shape or form. And then they're still going to continue to focus on single-player and live service games. So, I don't know. If you haven't been overly happy with PlayStation, I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. Probably through 2028 is going to be kind of a mess. And 2, I feel bad for the people that actually bought a PlayStation 5 Pro, because it's like, what the frick did you guys buy it for? You bought it for GTA 6. Okay, great. That's May next year. Hopefully we'll get Wolverine at some point. You get Ghost of Yotei. I'm sure that'll look beautiful. And Intergalactic. There's not much else there. And then are you guys also going to get PSR 2.0? Or PSSR 2.0? Project Amethyst. Or are you going to have to pay for that too? It really feels like the PlayStation 5 Pro was wasted and undercooked for $700. Sony can't do that again. I mean, again, I just feel like Sony has made every bad decision possible. And yeah, they have to change that. Let's talk about Space Marine 1 Remaster a little bit. Only played a little bit. Did an initial look. Link down in the description if you're interested. But in short, it's what we would expect. Okay? There's a multiplayer aspect. You can go exterminate everything with your buds or with randoms, or you can do versus. Just classic 2 teams. Shoot it out. And then something that is really cool is the customizer for Space Marines and Chaos. And they have like every single faction in there. It's so cool. Like, I did not expect that at all. And some of the stuff you can still work toward to unlock too, which is pretty neat. And then the campaign itself, it's 18 missions, just like we expect. It's literally a copy, except the textures and the models are redone. And so, yeah, it actually looks pretty good. It's still kind of clanky, some kind of clunky from like 2011. But yeah, it's a fun little remaster. So it would be something worth picking up if you're into Warhammer. If you haven't even played Space Marine 2, play this one first in chronological order. Because you're following the same characters. So you're getting a little bit more of his story before you get into Space Marine 2. So that's what I'm doing. And I'll be playing some more, of course, and I'll eventually have a full review for the game coming, hopefully toward the end of the month. We'll see with all the overtime I got. But yeah, it's actually pretty good. For right now, I do have some tweaks, some things I would change about it, but for right now, I'm kind of sitting at a 7 out of 10. So yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Okay, let's move on. We're almost done here. We actually had a breakdown from Schreier of what actually happened with Veilguard. And man, this is a mess. It probably never had a chance to really be successful. So let's go ahead and work through it. So October of 2017, Laidlaw, the creative director, said that he was actually resigning and leaving BioWare because he didn't agree with the decisions that EA was forcing. Because EA wanted Dragon Age to be a multiplayer live service game. That's great. The art director that replaced Laidlaw was Matt Goldman. And again, he was the art director, not the creative. And so this is when we get to see probably a lighter design for the game than maybe what we would actually expect. Kind of a step away from the less serious and gritty. And maybe he kind of wanted to make it his own a little bit. I don't blame him for that. But again, if people are kind of expecting a more gritty, kind of dark age game, like the other two have been, then yeah, that's kind of what we're expecting. That's what we would like. That's what we're paying our money for. That's our expectation. And that unfortunately was not met. Now, they also had Anthem launch, and that flopped. Okay, that was 2019. Man, that feels like so long ago. And some of the devs were saying ultimately during the development of Dragon Age that it was kind of becoming Anthem with dragons, which is not a great idea. Now, some of the things in Anthem were actually pretty cool. I loved actually being able to fly around the world and stuff like that. But again, it was kind of a stagnant, generic, very unfinished at launch. I remember playing the beta and I was telling people, it's like, look, this thing is not done. Like something is definitely off, but you know, oh well. But yeah, hopefully I have a channel now, so hopefully I can actually make a little bit of a difference for some folks. But yeah, I really try to actually pay attention and look at the details and look at things objectively and let you guys know about it. And ultimately, it's up to you guys on what to do. It's your guys' money. Absolutely. Also, too, during this time, right after Anthem was flopping hard, right around the time the start of COVID, the studio head had actually left, and another came in at this point, and they wanted to go back to a single-player game. So it's like, oh my word, okay, it's like you're losing the creative director, you're replacing with the art director, and he's wanting to change the vision of like what the game looks like and how it feels. You had Anthem fail, and some of the devs were saying that like Anthem, that Dragon Age was becoming Anthem with dragons, which is not great because that just flopped. And then you have the head of the studio leave, and the new guy that comes in, he wants to go back to a single player game. And that must have been too approved by EA because they saw how Anthem was which you can still go back and play, by the way. Those servers are still on. But, like, that's just crazy. So the whole team was told to completely scrap the whole story and start over. And they had 18 months. I mean, how screwed can you get? At this point, Matt Goldman, the guy that took over for the creative lead, he left BioWare in November of 2021. So this is probably when we got some of the bad writing and the focus possibly for the modern audience when they had to completely redo the whole story. So, and they were also bringing some new people in at this point after COVID. So in 2022, there was actually an alpha test. The biggest complaint was that there wasn't actually enough choice. And during some of the alpha testing, and like Lucas Stevens even talks about this because he was part of the testing. He got to be a part of that. He's like, the choices that I got to see in the game, those were really the only big choices in the game. The rest of it was all about friendship. It's like, oh my word. It's like, this is not like a Dragon Age game at all. This is horrible. Also, in 2022, we had Forspoken. We know that little gem, which if you're interested, you can actually buy that on Xbox now. But yeah, Forspoken came out and flopped hard. And again, a lot of the complaining was about the dialogue. It just didn't really jive right, didn't go anywhere, and was just absolutely horrible. And so yeah, they were also worried about that. So they rewrote a ton of the script. So a lot of the script that we hear was changed and tweaked and was maybe actually worse than what we already got, which that's insane. There was also the actors' strike that also affected doing voice lines and stuff for the studio. So yeah, they just could not freaking win. And so yeah, this is a great example of, you know, how new leads can put their spin on stuff. Publishing wanting more money and wanting to focus on live service, and the flipping back and forth, like all of that just completely killed the game. And then on top of that, they were building this toward the end for the modern audience. You know, that's the cherry on top. And basically, you know, after a few months, 3 months really, after launch, BioWare failed really hard. They were hoping for 3 million. And they only engaged, whatever that means, 1.5 million players. So they probably didn't even really barely sell 1 million copies. And BioWare had some pretty big layoffs, a few hundred people. And so now they're working on Mass Effect 5. And man, I gotta tell you, like, they failed on Anthem. They failed on Mass Effect Andromeda. And now they failed on Veilguard. And they are still alive. That's pretty impressive. But I don't think they can have a fourth time. Like, I really agree with Lucas Stevens on that. I'm surprised they're alive at all at this point. But man, what has made these companies special and amazing is that we had people that were born in the 60s and 70s, and maybe even 80s, making video games. And then we're having this kind of new generation, millennials, and Gen Z making video games, and oh my gosh, in some cases, we can just not make video games. Like, it has completely changed my entire perspective for a lot of these studios that we used to know and love, right? Including BioWare, including Rocksteady, including Gearbox, 343 Studios, Bungie, which is, you know, 343 is now Halo, but like, there's just not a lot of companies left, let me tell you, that I actually have hope in. And I really think what we're seeing just the changing of the guard, playing off of branding, hoping it can carry the studio. And again, the messaging is just completely lost, and they're just not the same internally, so they can't make the same type of quality of games. I don't think they can make the quality, and I don't think they can make the story and emotional engagement that we had with the games growing up, which is really sad. So, Mass Effect 5, I'm really curious. I did not play Andromeda. I stopped at 3 because I was so pissed. But yeah, we'll see what they do with the next Mass Effect. I hope they just kind of start over, pick another part in the universe or something, or some kind of extra colony. I don't know. I think they could totally make it interesting and make it their own. I think that would be fun. But again, man, this modern audience thing needs to die. And also, too, publishers need to stop focusing so hard on live service. Okay? Make a game. I've said this too with Helldivers. It's a live service game and it's great. They made the game first, and live service was an addition to the game. Instead, what we keep having is that publishers want a live service and turn it into a game somehow. Like God of War live service? Oh my word. No. Out of your freaking mind. Like, what a waste of time. Yeah, so these publishers better get their head out of their ass and better figure out that, if they really want to put money on the table, they need to understand who their audience is. And it's not this modern audience. It's not even close. And they need to understand what their audience wants in their game. Okay? Because we have Suicide Squad popping purple pimples, and then in Veilguard, we're popping red ones. Like, what kind of gameplay is that? That is so ridiculous. Last couple of things here. Stellar Blade launch on PC. It's doing really, really well. We're almost at 200,000 players on Steam for launch. And the last 3 days for the player count has been really consistent, so people are liking it. SteamDB shows a 92.6 out of 100. So, yeah, it's doing insanely well. PlayStation 5, we know, sold roughly about 2 million copies, a little more. And my guess is they're probably selling about 1 million on Steam so far. If they've sold about 1 million on Steam, this means, too, that the studio could have had an extra $60 million in revenue a year ago. And that would be pretty beneficial, I would think, to the development of their next game. So again, this is just another example of exclusivity holding back the potential. And this is why third-party publishers and other companies don't want to do exclusivity anymore. They want to put their game that they've made and put blood, sweat, and tears into, whether for the modern audience or not, and spread it to as many places as they can so they can get as much money as they can as soon as they can so that they can have the best jumping off point for their next game. Right? Or the continued development or whatever. And again, when you're holding back and you're kind of done with the FOMO, like Black Myth Wukong, for example, is coming over to Xbox, is probably not going to sell a ton, even though there's a discounted price if you pre-order early, like before June 18th or July 18th or something like that. And also, we just got shadow dropped Final Fantasy 16 on Xbox. But again, they're even selling it at $50. And I guarantee you they would have sold hundreds of thousands more, maybe even 1 million or a couple million more if they had have actually launched it all at the same time for every platform. So they left some money there on the table. And, Final Fantasy 16, again, is another game that kind of came and went, and people are looking forward to other stuff. Time moves on. Your window of opportunity is limited, whether wide or narrow. But either way, it's a window. And a lot of things are like that in life, actually. It's a good lesson to learn. Last thing I wanted to cover here was that Bend Studios, as I think I mentioned this already, but they have officially had roughly 40 employees actually be laid off. So I got to see too that LinkedIn, there's some senior positions that are blank. So I think as time goes on, we'll get to know who was fired, who was let go, who's taking over different positions, or if even certain positions are being removed from the studio. We'll kind of have to see. But yeah, 40 employees, they already didn't have a ton to deal with already. And yeah, they lost 30% of their employees. That is a big chunk. So they are working on something else. Small team, for sure at this point. Less than 100. And yeah, we'll have to see exactly what they're making. Hopefully something that's going to be successful. And then, yeah, some of the senior positions are now blank. That's not good. But anyway, thanks for tuning in, folks. You can always follow me at GamingGarbage22 over at YouTube. I will do my best to actually remember when I wake up and actually try to get this out there today. I'll link everything down below. And hopefully you guys are doing well. And, man, you know, it's the summertime. You know, take some time to plan something, big or small. It doesn't have to be a ton of money, but have something to look forward to. I'm serious. It really makes a big difference. And with that, folks, we'll see you guys on the next one.